Welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We're your pauper commentators, Michael Pitchick and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
I think you'll find out in a couple minutes.
I think you will. This week we're actually doing a collaborative episode with the fine folks over at Common Knowledge Podcast, another pauper podcast. We just finished up recording and we're actually doing this in post, so we can tell you it's actually a super fun episode with a bunch of neat discussion that went on. So we really hope that you enjoy this. We're definitely looking forward to collaborating with them on something in the future, but I don't know. I had a good time. But first, we've got a couple of things to take care of in the upkeep, and then we can get you directly into that actual show. So first off, this podcast is brought to you as always by Original Magic Art. They are a web store that has all sorts of cool dice bags, tokens, playmats, art prints from the world of Magic and the world as a whole, all sorts of cool art history things. And we are an affiliate over there. So if you use the affiliate code Commontary in all caps, spelled as is in the name of this podcast, you'll get 5% off your order, and we also get a little bit of kickback. So you're helping support the show and also getting your stuff for cheaper. So kind of a win-win situation. What do you have for the folks this week, Adrian?
Well, as always, we've got a Patreon. For just $1 an episode, you too can hear the full show, including the pre and post shows, and you get access to our patron exclusive Discord channel. All right. Yeah, enjoy the episode. We'll talk after.
Yeah, enjoy.
Hey everybody, so I am Brandon, and joined with me like normal is the trusty Sean the Lawbert.
Sup?
But we're also joined by a few other special guests today, or if you're listening to their show, we're the special guests. We've got Mike and Adrian from the Color Commentary Podcast. How's everybody doing?
Doing all right. It's real hot and miserable here in Boston, but you know, surviving.
Oh, you know, good.
Oh, you did it.
We got
wanting more.
We got the tagline. So yeah, we're finally doing a collab because there's 3 pauper podcasts, and we had to do this eventually.
Yeah. Who was it? Someone on Twitter was talking about like the Pauper Avengers or something.
Yeah.
All of us coming together. I can't remember who tweeted about it, but I thought it was kind of funny.
I think that was the Common guys.
Was it?
Might have been them.
Yeah. Regardless, we're here. We're doing the collaborative episode. It's gonna be 4 people yelling at one another, and absolute chaos will ensue. So let's get it underway.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, so our first talking point is current take on the format. So let's start with Sean. How do you feel about Pauper? Does it suck? Do you hate it?
It's my favorite format by far. I mean, obviously, I hardly play any other formats anymore, and I feel like it's the most open to brewing. I'm a brewer, and I just love that you can build decks for pennies once you have most of the format, and it really does. You don't get punished so much for it. Like there's known quantities like these are the best decks you have to beat, but they're not so oppressive. I mean, at times we've seen Scred Delver be so much of the format, but it was never, a problem, at least in Wizards' eyes, I guess.
I mean, you're kind of assuming that they're keeping track of all this, but
It's true.
I don't think they were for a long time, but now that the format's starting to get some traction, I think they're on the lookout for it, and they're thinking about it a little more. Whether or not that means they're going to actually look hard into bannings is another question, but
I wouldn't expect anything. It took them how many years to ban Cloud of Fairies when it was like clearly a problem card within the format. So I wouldn't.
They were pretty fast with Peregrine Drake.
Yeah, but
they also gave us Peregrine Drake in the first place. So
yeah, there was this whole thing where like there was I want to say it was Gavin Verhey said something about like, had we known that we needed to ban Cloud, we would never have downshifted Drake to common. But yeah, that was clearly a problem, right? And I think we're not in that state anymore. So
they got to Treasure Cruise at the same speed as the other formats, though.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah, to my chagrin.
I mean, I don't know if anyone was playing during the Treasure Cruise period, but that was not a good time in Pauper. It was bad, in fact. Like, it was like Tron was hard casting it just for like the fact that they could.
Tron was also not a blue deck back then, so it was kind of
Yeah.
weird. Like now it's like, oh well, no, they played Treasure Cruise, but back then it was very, very strange.
Were they more mono green at that time?
They were like red. I don't know.
Red-green?
They were like mostly red green. They played like Mole Drifter, but then playing Treasure Cruise was it was weird at the time.
Sure.
There was the like Fangren Marauder version, right, at the time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, where you have the stars and spheres to like provide life buffer as you like try to dump an Ulamog's Crusher as quickly as possible. That was kind of the game plan.
So, Lobert's reason for liking the format is actually a reason I also like the format. I like to pick a deck and play with it a lot. It started really with Affinity. That's how I got into Paupers, because I was already playing that in Modern. And then after Boros Tokens became like a real deck, I started playing that pretty extensively, and now I almost exclusively play Boros Monarch. So I just like really honing in on a deck, and Pauper lets you do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think there's enough space in Pauper for most people to find something they enjoy. There's obviously certain deck styles that don't translate well. Like, we're constantly in this position of combo decks are generally either too good and oppressive or not good enough to routinely 5-0. And
it's because you don't see a lot of a lot of like very meaningful stack interaction in the format. Most of it's like board based. So yeah, it's either like no one can stop it, or it's like really awful.
Yeah, and like most of them have centered around ghostly flickering stuff that untaps lands, which is like silly. It's just patently really, really powerful in this in a low power format. So I think like outside of the combo decks, and even those, you still have elves, which is basically the same as Legacy Elves with slight tweakings for power level, but I think that there's something for everyone in the format, and right now I'm actually pretty happy with where the metagame is. We're seeing like pretty decent shifts in terms of deck representation week to week in the challenges, and to me that's a sign of like pretty solid format health. There's nothing about the format that I feel is like drastically dangerous or anything. It just kind of, it's doing its thing right now. It has fluctuations, but I'm okay with that.
For how much we don't get to play combo, I feel like there's a strategy in Pauper that's like specifically Pauper, and it's like the mono red aggro, or like the red deck wins deck and Stompy, where you're just playing bears and attacking, like pure just aggro decks. And I can't speak to standard because I don't follow it at all.
Well, I was gonna say, I think there's a green Stompy deck in standard because of Steel Leaf, right?
Yeah, but I don't think it's along the same lines as what Sean is thinking, because they've got like 5 mana 10/10s and 3 mana 4/4s.
Well, yeah, they get better
garbage.
cards. They're not Pauper, like, but it's the same kind of turn dude sideways mono green strategy.
Can you be Stompy without Chalice? I don't know. I guess so.
oh yeah, where Stompy means nothing at all.
Yeah, Stompy means prison.
No.
Dragon Stompy. Good old Dragon Stompy.
It's good deck.
No dragons, no Stompy.
It used to play dragons. In its defense,
It had
the
the Dragon Rider, whatever that card is.
Yeah.
Goblin Rabble Master happened.
yeah, but like I feel like the deck for me that kind of highlights Pauper only interactions is the Boros Monarch deck, because that sort of Skyfisher engine doesn't really exist anywhere else. There's like, I guess there's similar things within EDH where you're kind of trying to establish a value engine, but there's nothing else that quite replicates that specific interaction where it's like, I'm going to play these very low impact cards that all cantrip, and it like the payload isn't a combo. It's not like Modern Storm, for example, where like you're playing all these cantrips to dig into Storm and Storm off. It's just trying to kind of accrue value over time.
And the Izzet Delver deck is sort of in that same vein, where you're trying to ninjutsu, draw a card, bounce Augur of Bolas back to your hand, and then Augur can just rip you a gush, which is insane that you're allowed to play that in any format ever, even in a fairer one. because there are just lines in Delver where they augur, they have nothing, they augur, they find Gush, they bounce their 2 lands, they draw 2 action spells, and then the game is basically over already, like again. So like they're very good on the top deck. But yeah, I agree with Mike that like this sort of like value engine style of deck, where you pick stuff up and replay it, doesn't really exist in a lot of other formats.
Yeah, I think it's because we're trying so hard to generate value because we don't have any of those big payoff spells. Like the fact that we talked about Tron just playing draw 3 and just paying the full mana cost, like they're not doing anything cute with Delve. We just want that value so bad, and you just have to grind to get it.
I 100% agree, because the best decks in the format are Tron with the pillars, I should say, are Tron with like a super good mana advantage in the late game, but then the other 2 decks are Monarch and like the Gush decks. So yeah, the format is really all about card advantage and how efficiently you can acquire it, while still committing to a board state. So I definitely agree with that assessment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even Stompy and the red deck wins, they kind of follow that same vein. They just accrue card advantage in a different way. They just say you're dead before you can play your cards.
Right.
So I made you mulligan to 3 this game, or whatever, So it's all about like having that engine, having that late game engine where you're just going to be able to pull super ahead, or being so aggressive that your opponent can't even get off the ground.
And I think like long term, one of the interesting things for me, having at this point like been aware of the format for about 4 years and having been doing this podcast for 2, it's weird because we no longer get half of sort of that value engine printed anymore. We're not seeing stuff like Tortured Existence. We're not seeing a card where it's just like, okay, here's a deck. Like even when Pulse of Marasa got printed, it was kind of like, okay, like this is reasonable and it's a fine card. And it turns out that when you put that together with a bunch of other stuff throughout history, you manage to put together this deck that's actually really solid. And the Kiln Fiend deck kind of had this similar evolution where it was just like, we need a critical mass of these super prowess effects. And then it finally got them in the form of Nivix Cyclops and was like, okay, cool, here you go. This is now a deck. So I feel like we're in this weird state with, specifically in regards to the New World Order and the design of commons as time goes on, we're seeing a lowered complexity, and I think it's going to get to a point where we're looking more at, do I have enough redundancy for this effect, and can I somehow piece something together? So I think going forward, that's going to be the really interesting thing for Pauper, is seeing the fact that we're not getting these sort of haymaker cards anymore. Like they've admitted Grey Merchant was probably a mistake. Like there's all sorts of, like, we're a format built on mistakes that were printed at Common. And I think at this point, moving forward, I'm more interested to see what people can kind of piece together, because we're not getting these huge haymaker cards anymore. We're just getting kind of incremental, either incrementally better or incrementally different takes on cards. So I think that's the thing that keeps me coming back week after week to talk about this format, is there is a future for it. I just have no idea what it looks like.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of seen that too. Like I think the biggest one that stands out in my mind is that red card that Sean, that we thought was terrible. The creature.
Lava Runner.
Oh
G2
god.
Lava Runner? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, we still think
Yeah.
that. We're still not sold.
Yeah, I think
we came out and said on our set review that card was garbage. And now
I
it's
think we
making
did too.
We didn't say it was garbage. We're just like, what do you do with it?
No, we're pretty much said it was garbage.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just didn't think it was even worth a slot, and we were proven wrong, I think, on week 1. I mean, I still am a little bit on the fence with it, but it's posting up the results.
Yeah, that's sort of the boat we're in too, where we're like, even I don't know. It's so hard to say, well, the deck won a tournament, so the deck is good. Burn is like traditionally not a very good deck in Pauper, right? Like even without the Lava Runner, it was still like, a pillar, but definitely not like a tier 1. I certainly wouldn't have expected it to win a challenge. So
Yeah.
it is pretty interesting, because I'm also not really sure what to make of the card either, because it definitely feels like a trap.
So I've actually
Yeah.
got a take here. It's less that G2 Lava Runner is good, and more the fact that the building constraints it forces upon you, like running copies of Gataxian Probe, just ups the density at which you're going to see top tier burn spells. I think it's less that Gitu Lava Runner itself is a really great card, and more that it forced people to reevaluate how they build burn, and they kind of slipped into this really good thing. Because when Gitu Lava Runner is great, like if you have it turn 1 and you've got a pair of probes, like sure, it's pretty much Goblin Guide that you had to double shock yourself for, but you also can trip twice. Like I think that by nature of what that card asks of a player, it tricked people into playing better cards, because like Thermal Alchemist is a grindy value engine, but that's not what burn necessarily wants to do. Like at worst case scenario, it's just another Curse of the Pierced Heart, and the ceiling sure is a lot higher, but I think Gitu Lava Runner just forced people to accidentally rethink, wait, why are we playing these to begin with? We should just be playing better burn spells. So that's my takeaway from it over the weeks.
I could totally see it getting replaced, though. I think the card that it's replacing is Firebrand Archer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that card had 1 toughness, which is like a no-no. And
bad.
It was so bad when you drew it late. Like there was a lot of bad things about that card. I think we're just waiting for something like, I don't know, similar to Curse of the Pierced Heart or Thermal Alchemist. Maybe just a good burn spell, like another Bolt effect or something like that. Maybe another Flame Rift. I don't know.
I mean, another Flame Rift would be great. Like that would immediately replace that card. I have no doubt in my mind about that. But like even if it was like a Bolt that shocked you, people would probably still be fine with that because you're still winning that race.
Yeah, going a little bit deeper on that, Burn has always had to play cards that aren't that great. Like Magma Jet sort of comes to mind. So yeah, if you can just recur the 2 damage and then it forces you to cantrip a whole bunch, I can see it.
Yeah, like Burn has always been Lightning Bolt and the 5 or 10 cards that are strictly worse Lightning Bolts, and like tried to make that work. So I don't know. I think Lava Runner is interesting in what it forced people to do to the deck, more so than actually, I think, being a really great card. But I think that is a good example of like a small card that was pretty ubiquitous, like not ubiquitous, like unnoticeable when everyone did their set reviews. Everyone was kind of like, all right, I guess. But seeing it actually pan out, it did affect a meta staple pretty heavily.
Sorry, we mentioned like the New World Order earlier, and it feels like Burn isn't going to end up getting that theoretical card we just we're talking about that does 3 damage, does 3 to you, because they're not printing good instants and sorceries. They're all creatures, so our creatures are going to get a lot better, and our instants and sorceries, like Tortured Existence, isn't going to happen again because they don't want to make something that's not a creature that good. They would put it on a creature. That disappoints me.
I will say that we're kind of in the same boat as Legacy, although they obviously get more cracks at good cards because they have the benefit of having all the rarities. But like some of the best cards in that format too are also mistakes, you know, like Gitaxian Probe until recently.
well, like much like Legacy, we also do see a lot of the more powerful cards coming from these supplemental sets. Like Ash Barrens before we actually started recording, we briefly mentioned Ash Barrens and like the huge price spike that followed because we've got Commander coming out soon again. But like that is something that while it could have seen print in a standard set, didn't. It was handed to us as a gift through a supplemental set, and the Monarch cards as well. Like I think the future of Pauper, and I think we've said this before on our show, is going to lie, like the highest impact is going to come from these supplemental sets where they're allowed to bend New World Order a little bit. And I think the interesting thing is that they can justify high power spells if creatures are good enough. Like there's removal that could be bad in a limited format, but really good in a constructed format. And I think that's kind of what we have to hope for. Like if we wind up in a block where like 4 toughness matters, I could see them printing that card because then it doesn't deal with a bunch of stuff in the format that matters. So I think we're in a weird place where like we are at the whim of the NWO, but at the same time, I think there's still room for stuff to happen in standard sets.
But it's also scary that they could print those cards and they could just, we could be waiting on them to be printed in a freaking treasure chest for months.
I mean, do they still not have all the Battle Bond stuff up? Like,
They don't have most of it.
I was gonna say, like, I think Breitling made it because it was getting legacy hype and people wanted to play it there. But I mean,
I know Peace Strider isn't in there, and I went to put that in the deck. I know nobody else wants it, but I do.
I mean, I've played worse cards than Peace Strider. Like,
I played Bottle Gnomes.
What is your take on the 2 Striders, Sean? They're basically Siege Rhino.
They're Siege Rhino, right?
Pretty similar.
Oh man, I mean that nothing the internet loves more than comparing pauper cards to cards that they shouldn't be compared to at all. Because, like, I mean, look at Forbidden Alchemy. That's just dig through time. Like, you're gonna see 8 cards. You're gonna get 2 of them.
Same deck.
But yeah, I think, like, the distribution model with Mitgo is a problem right now, and I hope they find a better solution than the treasure chests. Like, even if it was just like a limited product where it's like, get 4 ofs, because they do that with what is it? I think it's the new player kit or something. Like, you can buy
player rewards. No, okay, new player kit.
There's a product on Mitgo that you can purchase that's just, here's 4x of every common and uncommon from the new set, and that's just a thing that you can buy. So maybe there's some solution like that moving forward that would also, in theory, prevent the huge spikes that everyone complains about with these format staples. But I don't know. It's a weird place to be. Do you guys have any opinions on the whole, like, unification topic between the 2 card pools?
We actually did an entire episode on that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
And
yeah.
Our consensus was just like, I think what Brandon wanted there to be is, like, we at least want, like, a list of cards that aren't on MTGO, because it's so confusing.
Right. Yeah. If we're not going to have them be unified, I want at least to be able to point a new player in a direction and say, these are the cards you can play with, these are the cards you can't. Ideally, I'd want everything to be unified, but I think there's a lot of flies. There's a lot of logistics behind that I think WotC probably doesn't want to deal with.
So the best solution I've found for this is, like, a miserable one. So Scryfall is, like, my default search engine when it comes to Magic stuff, and they have a format filter. So if you do, what is it, R : common and then -F pauper, it shows you everything that's has a common printing that isn't pauper legal, and, like, that is not a good solution. Like,
well, yeah, the biggest thing about that is a lot of people don't even know what Scryfall is. I didn't until Sean introduced me to it, So that's just another thing that now when we have a new player who wants to play this format and we're trying to explain to them why the cards they got in their Battle Bond sealed tournament that they played can't be used in their pauper tournament.
But some of them
saying,
can.
Go to Scryfall and enter this complicated equation and it'll tell you why that is.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. I'd prefer if they unified it and then just, like, banned stuff that needed to be. Although I think at this point High Tide's probably okay. I think we've managed to remove everything.
We touched on the ban list, the paper ban list that the professor had made, and High Tide was on the list of things that were like probably doesn't do anything at this point. Like, there's no engine to get a High Tide deck going. Like, you're gonna have 1 million blue mana and then pass the turn.
Like, so you could, because when I still lived in Austin for a while, we had High Tide legal. We were just going, like, Mitgo or paper, whatever, it's fine. And we had High Tide legal for a while, and someone finally figured it out. And the trick is, what is it? Train of Thought, which is a replicate target player draws a card, and that's your out.
You can deck somebody.
Yeah, you mill someone out, but this was still when Cloud was legal. So, like, you could combo off, like, turn 3, I think it was, and just wreck someone. And, like, it was a problem then, but now I'm not sure what exactly High Tide would do for the format. I guess it probably makes it so that weird like splice onto arcane deck works a little bit better.
That seems fine.
Pedal
Yeah.
Festival.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not calling it that. I don't care how many people tell me.
Here's something that might also be a little bit easier on WotC. So hear me out for a second. So people buy Battle Bond, right? And they know Battle Bond is not modern legal because Battle Bond, even if you were totally new to Magic, you might think, oh, is this modern legal? And you just go and you check Gatherer, maybe. Do you think if there was a pauper filter on Gatherer, that would help a lot of the problems with the format? Because Wizards does have a definition for pauper, and it is a Magic Online format. So but like it's not on Gatherer. So like if it was on Gatherer and you could just search on Wizards system if a card was pauper legal, do you think that would help alleviate some, maybe not fix the problem entirely, but maybe alleviate some of the strain of the problem?
Yeah, when I think about my solution, which is just having that list somewhere where I can go, I immediately in my head think that would be on Gatherer, that would be on Wizards homepage, because as a new player, that's what I'm going to think. I want to learn more about this game. I'm going to go to Wizards website. I'm not going to go to Scryfall. I don't know what the heck that is. So it blows my mind that there's nothing there for pauper. And
with the supplemental products, it is. I can easily go find that Brightling is not modern or standard legal. So it is really weird to me as well that it's not on there. I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, I think that would do a lot. I mean, it's a Band-Aid fix. I don't think it's ideal, but it's better than the state we're in right now.
Yeah.
And I think that unifying this format, or at least creating a Band-Aid of some kind where it's easy to figure out what isn't pauper legal, is going to be one of the big stepping stones to really letting this format boom.
Yeah.
Because we're not getting in a lot of new players. We're getting in, they play standard and then they play modern or something, and then they realize that, oh, I don't want to play modern because it's expensive. Standard's expensive. And then they fall to commander, and we get like a small little bit of people that come in and play pauper. We just don't have the growth that a format like commander would have. And I think one of the big steps is Gatherer.
So if I'm not limited what I think is going to happen, if just what I want to happen is, obviously I just want all of the cards, and I don't care if that takes just dumping all of them in a treasure chest or bringing back, like, doing alpha drafts and beta, all of the old drafts. Like, yeah, they're not going to sell very well, but we'll get our cards. Like, that's my dream.
Well, so I'm looking here. I just pulled up that arcane Scryfall search, and I want everyone here to just take a stab at guessing how many cards have a common printing and are not pauper legal, not counting conspiracies and uncards.
400.
I'm gonna guess close to 1,000.
I was gonna guess 300.
So Robert got closest. It's 473. So
does that include anti cards?
I don't know, but like looking
There's
through,
not that many anti cards. It's like 5.
Looking through, like, already, like, not only is there Battle Bond, there was another set released this year that's got commons that aren't pauper legal. The Global series that did not come to Magic Online.
Is that the one with the Chinese, I think?
Yeah, the Chinese centric release. Like, the cards aren't good, but there's 400 cards sitting here, and admittedly most of them are bad, but like I probably wouldn't want Ashnod's Altar in the format, and Ashes to Ashes is a bit dicey as to whether or not that's healthy. But like, by and large, most of these cards either exist on MitGo and just don't have a common printing, or like would not be an issue to have in the format. Like, I really don't care if someone gets to play Chandler against me.
What about Felden's Cane, dude?
No.
The tech.
You see, and that was actually an argument that was brought against us when we put out the Unifying Pauper episode, was that the ban list would become a problem at that point because they'd introduce all these things into the format, and then we'd have to ban things. And my take on it is kind of just, we'll ban what's going to be a problem. I don't think there's a problem with the ban list being longer. Think about all the new cards that are now coming into the format. We've got to ban a small percentage of that, but we've introduced so many new cards to the card pool You know, who
And
knows? Who knows how
honestly,
many decks come from that?
even out of the ones that are on the Card Kingdom or Professor ban list, I feel like him is really the only problem. Like Sinkhole in a format with Gush, who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
Ranger, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one, the other like elephant in the room is Desert, which I think is legitimately a problem.
I feel like it's not that bad. It does 1 damage to an attacking creature. I feel like it's just not that bad.
But that's how you kill aggro decks. Like this, like
Yeah.
Desert.
Oh, all the great pauper aggro decks, dude. Yeah.
So
It could be format warping. I think you're right.
We joke about like Electrickery making X1s unplayable. This would make any X1 without flying unplayable.
You could play it, you just could never attack with it.
Like it's
So does Desert only kills 1/1s without flying?
No, it doesn't care.
Oh, it doesn't
one
care.
damage.
Yeah, it deals 1 damage to anything, right?
But it's already done the creature gets to do its damage first, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I like the big thing is I think that that's a card that just provides a power level that is a power level of effect on a card that's more difficult to interact with than a creature, for example. Like even if you had a free Prodigal Sorcerer, I think I'd be more okay with that than Desert. Just on the basis of lands are a little tricky to interact with, and I wouldn't want to see a format where people are main decking land destruction when that's not the main goal of their deck, just to be able to ensure that they can beat deserts.
But one point I kept coming back to in our episode was everyone seems to pick a different card. Like a lot of the cards we've talked about, I'm like, that's fine. Even Desert, I'm like, let's give it a shot. I say all of them, give it a shot, see if it ruins us, and then go from there.
Yeah. I think it would be kind of fun to just introduce all these cards and just see what happens and just turn it into the wild west. I think that would just be fun.
Yeah, and I think the results would shake out pretty quickly about what's a problem and what isn't. And I really, I really think like Sinkhole would be fine. High Tide we already mentioned, I think would be okay. I even think Goblin Grenade is not really that as strong as people make it out to be.
It isn't. I've played Goblin Grenade.
Yeah,
it's not that
because,
good.
Like you get to play Goblin Grenade, but then you have to play goblins, so
Yeah,
they
and spell
kind of
stutter
balance
spread is
each other out.
Pretty good against it. So there's a lot of answers.
Yeah. It's a format that has spell stutter spread in it makes me not want to ever try to cast Goblin Grenade. You're right.
Like even just counterspell, like there's a ton of answers to it in the format, and like 2-for-1ing yourself, and in worst case scenario your opponent also gets a 1/1 out of the deal. That's just not good.
I mean, we're putting 1 more damage on. Was it Reckless Assault?
Yeah.
Sack a creature, deal 4 damage. Yeah. It's not instant speed, but like it's just that card's not even really playable most of the time. And now we're being like, is 1 more damage and instant speed bannable? I would rather just throw
it. Also a sorcery.
Oh, is it also a sorcery?
Yeah. So it's not even that. Yeah. It's even worse.
I thought it was an instant.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. Like it's an actual miserable card to play. If it was an instant, I would see the arguments, because being able to do that in response to like a removal spell feels pretty good, but it just isn't that great.
Yeah, knowing that it's not an instant changes my opinion on it. I'll almost say it's unplayable completely now. Like whereas before I was kind of like, yeah, you could play it and it'd be okay, but
wait for
I wouldn't
this.
say it's not even playable.
You can't dispel it. There you go.
Which spell?
Dispel. But yeah, like outside of a handful of cards, by and large, these cards just as someone who works in web development, I totally get not wanting to spend time programming something useless, but at the same time, it would be really appreciated if they just stopped this discussion once and for all. Like I think we've probably done like 2 episodes over the run of the show talking about this issue, because it just keeps coming up. So please, Wizards, if you're watching, just take a moment and consider for me. Stop this. Don't do this. It's not good. You're killing my crops. but like I'd love them to do this. I don't have any hopes that they actually will, and in the long run of things.
Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it too, is we're not going to see a big major fix on it just because the time, the resources to do that, it's just not worth it to them. And that's why I think the best solution we have, going back to what Adrian said, is getting something on Gatherer. That's probably the best, easiest, simplest fix, band-aid fix we can get, because I doubt that they're going to invest the resources, the money, the time into actually fixing the problem.
Unless they fix it by, in 15 years when they phase out MTGO and put in a Magic Arena and they actually fix the problem.
No.
We're 15 years.
We're stuck with Mitgo until this game dies. They're not gonna let that horrible piece of spaghetti code go. It's a nightmare program, but they've just got so much invested in it now where I'm pretty sure they're just like, I don't want to do this again. I just want to keep this because at least it kind of works. Like, sure, what is it? Power Conduit for a while just caused games to freeze up when you cast it for no discernible reason. But like,
Magic's a complicated game, Mike.
I've seen What's that card, Sean? That
Thornbow Archer.
Oh yeah, the one that's glitched and
it's been glitched for over a year and a half now, and it just makes me mad every time I think about it.
What does it do? It makes them gain a life instead of losing one?
Yeah. It's the opposite. So you just go in and be like, minus sign. Done. That's it.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but like, it's what we got. Like, I don't see them getting over to Arena in the next 10 years completely, but I would love to. I've seen the interface. It looks quite nice. So I would totally be on board with like playing on Arena, but I
want to cast Gush on Arena.
Just
cool. Think about that animation. What Gush would be, just a big pillar of water.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I would be super into that, but like, also not holding my breath. Again, same team that can't figure out how to make Thornbow Archer work correctly or doesn't want to. Or what is it? Spinning Darkness has been glitched for like 3 or 4 years at this point in varying states. Like, sometimes it casts for free. Sometimes you can exile any 3 black cards out of your graveyard. Sometimes you can't alternate cast it at all. Like, it just rotates through different assorted glitches. So I don't know. I do think the Gatherer fix is probably the most realistic, like, quality of life change that could come to the format, but I'm also still not holding out my breath on that because there's multiple free resources out there that WotC doesn't manage that manage to do Gatherer's job a little bit better, just without the official Magic stamp on it. So I don't know.
Can't even leave comments anymore. What is this world coming to?
I don't know why they had the commenting feature to begin with, but
that's a terrible idea in retrospect.
Oh, I miss it. I was on there all the time.
Me too. Got some favorites. Master of Ethereum, greatest commenter ever.
Just some guy leaving good quality jokes in the comment section.
No, he was that dude. There was also Wrath of Shane, who used a lot of the cards to talk about how he didn't think it was religiously correct the cards being matched. There was a lot of good stuff on there.
Well, I mean, it's like how every spoiler season, if you go on Mythic Spoiler, every card there is someone who has commented the following phrase verbatim: "Oh, looks like Dredge got a new toy." On every single spoiler.
I don't believe you. I'm gonna look it up. Continue amongst yourselves.
I used to, when I was first brewing, like when I bought a booster pack and started playing the game, like that's where I would go for my brewing ideas, is people would do card interactions on there and I would kind of just go from there, and it's dead.
All right, so we did have, do we want to kind of shift gears a little bit, because we did have another topic that we'd kind of discussed, maybe parsing through, that's a little bit more controversial.
I'm going to stretch first. I'm ready to fight.
Okay, so I want to circle back to something that Adrian said 45 minutes ago. But my favorite thing about this format, and this is what draws me to Paupers, this is the only format, the only one that you can play 4 Brainstorms in your deck and 4 Gush. And if I had
sure.
it my way, I would have 4 treasure crews in there too. But
All right, so the ban list is like the perennial like hot topic issue that every time you say the B word, people crawl out of the woodwork and want to fight you. But
People, in my, it's a tough issue to tackle. People don't like to lose, and the deck that wins the most is Delver. So people want to ban cards out of Delver. It makes sense to me. And you could probably point to some numbers and say that Delver is a problematic deck. I think Alex Ullman, he figured it at like what 30% of the winningest meta or something. It's
yeah,
pretty high. So I guess there are definitely arguments for, but my argument against is that people still like to play the format by and large, and I think that that's a very big like format feel is a very undefinable metric that Wizard will inevitably cite when they ban things out of a format. And I don't know if Pauper feels that way yet. Certainly not in the way you know. It can be even be a bit more subtle, like Ticket Taxi and Private Death Right Shaman, the recent bannings, for example, at a Legacy. Even though those maybe didn't feel super unfun, they were shutting off strategies and they were dominating the metagame. So I don't know, and they enabled some really broken stuff. So I'm not sure. I could see it going either way, but the format feel is definitely not there for me as it being like unfun. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble.
I think my opinion, my take on that is, Pauper is a casual format at its core, and
Yes.
people are going to play the decks they want to play regardless of whether it gives them the highest win percentage in an event, with the exception of challenges. Challenges is where I'd say it's different, and that's why when you go and look at challenge results, you'll see a lot more Delver than if you go and play leagues. I know for me, when I play leagues, the number one offender is Elves. I feel like I play against that deck non-stop in leagues, and that's because that's a deck people gravitate to. They love it. But you don't play a lot of. I don't play a lot of Delver mirrors, like very few, and I think that might change as the format starts to gain traction. Channel Fireball is already hosting huge events at their GPs for Pauper, where people are going to start becoming more competitive. People who are thinking about this format more competitively are going to start looking at those results, start looking at challenge results more. And I think at that point, we'll start to see decks like Delver become an actual problem. But at this point, at its core, this is still a casual format, and people are going to play it casually, and they're going to play the decks they love.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, like if we ever got a Pauper GP, or I've seen people float the idea of for team trios swapping in Pauper in place of Legacy. If we saw an event like that, I think that's the point where Wizards would have to take a long hard look specifically at Preordain and Gush and determine whether or not they were still yielding a healthy meta as a result of that. But until that point, again, like there's not a big enough data pool that we have public access to, and I don't think, like, not that I want to paint WotC as the villains here, but we are not a cash cow. They have no obligation to care about us. Like,
right,
we represent a very, very minimal bottom line in like the very bottom of their ledger when it comes to Magic Online alone. Like, forget about paper sales, because the amount of sealed product I buy is a pre-release every 4 months, and I usually miss the one in the middle of the summer. So, like, I totally get them not caring that much, but if they did put on one of these large-scale events, that's the point at which we'd kind of start to see both pros playing and grinders playing. And I think that's the point where Wizards would consider, hey, is this actually a healthy format, or have we just not been paying attention? Personally, like, I think everything on the ban list should stay on the ban list, because I know people love asking about, like, can we unban Invigorate? Like, it seems like an okay card, and it's like, I really rather you wouldn't. It's not good Magic. Like, it's not fun in Legacy to play against Infect with Invigorate. Like, it's definitely not fun when I don't have access to Force of Will. So I don't know. I think moving forward, I would not be surprised in the next year or so if we see something from the mono blue card draw suite banned. Not all of them, though. And that's like that's the thing.
What do you think about specifically banning Augur?
No. No,
See, I think this is where Sean and I are going to butt heads with you guys a little bit, because we both feel that um, the offender is Delver of Secrets. Like, just ban Delver of Secrets. Like, look at that card as a 1-mana creature compared to every other 1-mana creature in the format, and the power level is so drastically different. Take Delver out of the mono blue deck and take him out of the blue red deck, and at the core, that's still a very good deck, but it's nowhere near as busted as it is without Delver of Secrets.
So I think in lieu of Delver, you wind up playing different, similarly statted evasive threats, and I think that it's just changes the role of the mono blue and blue red decks from being so tempo oriented and probably leaning into like some of the fairy synergies possibly. The interesting thing actually is before I got super into Pauper, I was really big on Peasant, which is, for folks who don't know, similar construction rules, except you get 5 uncommons, and they have a different ban list, and they actually banned Delver. They just put it there because they were like, it's showing up too frequently, we're just going to get rid of it. And to this day, like, they have a website, and the number one deck there right now on this day is Fairies, which is just mono blue Delver with Delver swapped out for a couple of other pieces. So I think at the end of the day, like, the deck will still exist if you took away Delver. I think it just changes where it fits in terms of like the super archetypes, and I think that removing one of the cantrips just removes a level of consistency that those decks have that allow them to perform so well. Because the moment you're swapping like Preordained to Serum Visions, you're taking a pretty decent sized hit in terms of quality of games.
I like being the format where we get to play all of the cantrips, though. All of the good cantrips. That's fun to me. Like, the fun factor is way over, and I know people are going to disagree with me, playing against or playing with Delver of Secrets. Like, that's a fun sucker for me. Like, yeah, you played Delver turn 1, and then I didn't have something to immediately answer it. Then you just locked me out of the game, and I died turn 5 or something like that. I think the ban list, if you look at it, there's a few exceptions with like Frantic Search and like Treasure Cruise, but all of these are like payoff spells. And I want to stick with that and getting rid of the payoff spells and have it just all enablers, all deck manipulation is really good. It's just, what are you digging into? What's your combo? Like, it just being Delver of Secrets. I like that, like, you're like, I think that the deck would still function without Delver of Secrets. That's a good thing to me. I want the deck to still work. I just think that because of that difference in power level that we mentioned, where Delver's miles above the next 1-drop, like, is it Phantasmal Bear you're playing? Ooh, that is fine with me. Like,
Yeah, and I gotta agree with Sean. That's sort of how I feel about it too. Is there's always going to be a best deck in the format, and if Blue Red Fairies is that deck, I'm okay with that. I just think the power level of Delver of Secrets isn't ubiquitous with the rest of the card pool in Pauper. It's just so much more powerful.
I think that's a completely like fair statement that it is probably one of the most powerful creatures in the format, period. But I think when it comes to like talking about like banning something, the deck that I look to more than Delver is actually Tribe Combo, which I think is a deck that points to blue cantrips and card draw spells being hideously overpowered. Like, Tribe is a deck that on paper shouldn't exist in my mind, because it's playing 4 copies each of its 2 payload cards, and outside of that, it's not like I have yet to see someone win just by beating down with a 1/1. Like, that's not generally where that deck wants to be, and I think that when I see that deck and when I see those lists, it points to something not quite being right, because they get away with running the lowest amount of win cons possible. And like outside of a handful of interactive spells, like they're interacting with you on the stack, they're rarely, you know, interacting with creatures outside of Giga Drowse. I think that to me is a much stronger indicator that something might not quite be right with the power level of specifically blue card draw in comparison to other things, because you could not make that deck work with any other combination of colors. And people have tried in the past, like there's like About Face, which is a 1-mana non-cantripping version of Inside Out. Like people have tried this combo before. I just think that at the end of the day, the only reason that deck can exist is because of specifically Preordain and Gush. And honestly, I would not be upset if Gush left the format at all. I would be a little upset if Preordain left the format. I like Preordain as a card. I enjoy casting it. I've cast it a bunch of times. So, like, I just think that deck in particular points to something being rotten in the format of Pauper.
I can maybe agree with the Gush going away, but I still don't want to lose Ponder, Preordain, Brainstorm.
The reason I always bring up Preordain is I think that Ponder is fundamentally a more skill taxing card, and I would prefer to, if we're going to lose one of the cantrips, it's not Brainstorm, because Brainstorm requires you to actually work for it to be good. And for me, Ponder requires a higher level of skill, and you can kind of goozle yourself with it. Like if you see two things that are spot on and one that's bad, you're kind of in that awkward position of like, if I don't have a shuffle effect, I'm going to be drawing into this in 2 turns, excuse me. Like you can wind up in situations where you're less than ideal in your next couple of turns. And I like that in the fact that if you see something bad with Preordain, you're just like, all right, to the bottom. You're never going to see this again. So like that would be the one of the cantrips I would get rid of. Gush, I would be fine if it just went away. Like that card has never enabled good things in the format in my eyes.
Vinestorm.
I think Gush might be one of the real reasons that Tribe combos around, so that deck would take a huge hit, but Delver maybe not as much. I mean, it would take a hit, but it would still be a very good, very consistent deck. It just wouldn't be able to rip Gush off the top on an empty hand and win the game from it. But I think that
I mean, I'd imagine you'd wind up running something like, it's much worse, but like comparative analysis exists, and that is if you can get Surge online, that's a 3-mana draw 2 at instant speed. Like that's a not horrendous impression of Gush. But
the islands being in your hand though is the important part for Tribe.
Yeah, like
right.
And the free.
Yeah.
I think that removing Gush would kill Tribe as a deck almost.
I
as far
don't
as
see
like
a problem
Delver
with that.
Secrets
but...
deck goes.
Come on,
as
we
far
have
as like
two
Delver decks
combo
goes. Yeah.
Give us that one, Mike. Come on.
I mean, then Kiln Fiend just comes back, right? Like Delver Fiend can be a deck again if Tribe goes away.
I think the thing though with Tribe is that like it's really the only pure combo deck that exists that's playable. You know, Kiln Fiend, is it Blitz? That's really an aggro combo deck at the end of the day. They can play that aggro game where Tribe cannot. Like you said, Tribe's never just attacking someone with 1/1s. And I think that keeps it balanced in that you can hate that deck out if it starts to get too out of control. Whereas like a deck like Is It Blitz, it can switch its roles up and whatever. But I think having just a pure combo deck in the format is good. You know, we've got everything represented in Pauper, so why not just have a combo deck? And I don't think Tribe is to the point where it's so out of control that I want it dead.
I mean, I don't think it's out of control. I think it just kind of pushes out some decks that could otherwise potentially show up in the metagame. Like, I think Tribe specifically doesn't allow white decks, like mono white decks, to have a great time in this format due to their lack of a lot of instant speed removal. And I think like I would rather have people playing like dorky aggro decks than this combo deck that sometimes like it's just like, okay, cool, like my list has 2 or 3 outs to this combo, and if I don't draw them, it's just done. Like, it's specifically the fact, like, the reason I'm okay with elves as a combo deck, even though I have spent like the time since Onslaught Block to now hating playing against elves, the reason I'm okay with it is just the fact that, like, it's creatures. At the end of the day, you can interact with that deck in a meaningful way with almost any deck you want. And I don't feel the same way about Tribe. Like, Tribe has 0 opportunity cost in the form of circular logic. Like, it just gets that as a basically freebie because it's part of how, like, discarding cards is a thing you already want to do, and so you just get a 1 mana counter spell. And personally, I feel like if we had elves as our combo deck in the format, I would be super okay with that. Like, if that was the one combo deck, because you can interact with that. It's fundamentally every color has some way to interact with that deck, and I don't feel like it's quite as even a playing field when it comes to something like Tribe.
At the end of the day, I still don't think it's the issue. I still think the Delver deck is, and the best way to just target Delver decks is the namesake card. And like, the fact that we've done shows where we take a look at the meta, and if you add together mono blue Mill Delver, which is like nothing, but we did it, and Scred, it ended up being like 40% or more. Was it 36? I think that was the number, 36%. That looks more like a problem, and I think if you ban out a cantrip, that deck just keeps going, and it doesn't actually solve the problem, and it makes the format less fun. But I think we're going in circles.
Circular logic.
Oh, just coming in with that one. I mean, I guess so the other thing, and this is one that I am purposely throwing out there because I know people aren't going to like it. I think there is an argument for unbanning Empty the Warrens.
Boo.
No. Next topic.
And
Yeah.
no.
I'm in on this.
Hear me out.
I'm all in on this.
Hear me out. People are already main decking Electrickery. Like, there's Electrickery. Like, so here's the thing. If they go off once and you have an answer for it, what on earth does that deck do? Just sit there and wait to draw into another full 7 that it can combo with? Like, I think there is just enough hate within this format that makes that deck a problem to try and run. Like, you can stall just enough that you can get the board clean and stabilize again. Like, if there's anything that comes off the ban list, that would be the only thing I would argue for. Maybe Frantic Search, and even that I'm not, like, super okay with. But I think if we had to unban something, that would be my pick.
I'm so against unbanning anything that I can't really speak to this. Maybe Invigorate, because I never experienced the Infect. Like, from what I understand from just articles, I didn't play in that period, but Infect was a deck because the Storm decks were so fast and consistent that you had to also do something equally as fast, and it didn't matter if you were as consistent. So that's why that card was banned. But at the same time, they banned all of the other Storm cards. So we've never really seen what that does in a normal metagame. So that would be the one that I would look at.
I mean, I think it probably just leads to a lot of, like, quote unquote non-games where someone just, like, you know, like, there's the option that on turn 2, if they stuck the Glistener Elf turn 1, that they just, like, have the nuts and go triple Invigorate. Like, sure, you probably lose if your opponent's on Stompy and they get, like, the triple Burning Tree. You're probably losing that game. But, like, you at least have outs. Like, I think Invigorate just makes it so that only blue decks can meaningfully interact with that deck. And I guess black decks, but, like, even there, you're just, like, there's going to be hands where you just have no chance. So, I don't know. I guess I'd probably be okay with Invigorate, but I don't know. Unbanning Empty the Warrens, I do not think is the end of the world. I don't think that it's going to cause, you know, the seas to turn to blood and all that. So it's an opinion. Not everyone has to like it.
I'll accept that I don't have to like it.
Or actually, here's the other one. I'd be down with banning Oubliette just so people stop playing it. Like, it's not a good card. Stop. Just don't do it.
We don't have to keep hearing about how expensive it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm the big elitist on a podcast. I'm gonna say it. I don't care that it's like $30. Like, fine,
Yeah.
sure. Just ban it so people stop complaining.
Wow, dude, that's the bougiest thing you've said.
I don't even own them. Like, I'm not taking this position because, like, oh, I bought my Oubliettes when they were $5. I don't own any Oubliettes. It's not
the one
that good.
way Wizards has to make money off of Pauper, and you're going to take that away from them. They need to print it at Mythic and sell the packs like hotcakes.
Oh yeah, just so we can really see what that text looks like on a physical card now. You've seen what Animate Dead looks like now. It's a nightmare. Like, that card is just miserable to read, and like, I don't know. People who hope that Oubliette's getting reprinted, it's not getting reprinted. It's a nightmare card. It does a bunch of weird things. Like, you track the
Not
counters.
on color either.
Beyond that, it's just like, okay, here's
I know.
here's a journey. It brings all the auras with it. Also, keep track of any counters on it, because those are going to come back when it comes back in as well. And I don't even actually know if it just returns with those on it, or if like it places them on as it enters the battlefield. Like, I don't know how Oubliette actually works.
I imagine it's probably like phasing. They're just there still. They don't come back on. They don't leave. They're just still there. But I'm not a judge, and I've never cast an Oubliette, so I also don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they come back with it. But what that card needs more than anything is a flavor text line. Just like a couple, maybe 3 flavor text lines, just so we get our magnifying glass and try to read all of it.
I would...
with the new card border, they're going to have to put that line, too, that divides them. So there's no room in that text box for anything.
So I joked about this being almost as bad as Animate Dead. I've actually pulled it up. It's pretty much as bad. So the fact that this requires note-taking as part of the rules text is reason enough to never print this card again. There's literally a line, note the number and kind of counters that were on that creature. And then when it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control, tapped with the noted number and kind of counters on it. If you do, return all other exiled cards to the battlefield under their owner's control attached to that permanent.
I didn't know it was tapped.
I didn't know that. I have cast this card on Mitgo. I didn't know that it tapped them. Like,
Sounds like you own Oubliettes, dude.
I don't own paper Oubliettes. It's like $1 online. Not even. It's 89 cents.
Not all of us are rich like you.
Oh, but yeah, I think the ban list is honestly fine. I would not cry if Gush went, and I'd be cool with Preordain leaving.
This is the one thing that I am interested in, is swapping. So, like, cranial plating is unbanned, but you ban the artifact lands, or Cloud Post is unbanned, but you ban Glimmer Post.
No, that second one's a bad idea. That second one's a really bad idea.
No,
That's the one that makes that's the one that makes all the mana.
That's the good half of that, like, land set. Like, sure, Glimmer Post lets you stabilize a little with the life, and that's nice, and it does let you ramp the Cloud Posts even more. But like, I could, if I get Cloud Post, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble Teachings, and I'm just going to put in 4 Cloud Posts and be able to cast Teachings off of like 2 lands. Like, that's the game plan there for me. Like,
it's fine.
so the whole reason that we still get to keep Tron is like there's more work involved, and like the payoff is actually smaller per land. Like, by the time you have 3 Cloud Posts, you're at 9 mana. So I don't know. Like,
I know.
I like, Adrian, you've played a bunch of Affinity. Does Affinity survive not having the artifact lands but getting Cloud Post back, or cranial plating?
No, I don't think so. The artifact lands are so good because you actually play affinity. In modern, you're not actually playing affinity because all the artifact lands are banned, but you have like Mox Opal, and I mean you still have Drum, so it's gonna be fine.
I mean, I just actually realized, like, I think the thing that hurts more than affinity is Monarch. Like, you lose out on the Galv Blasts, and I think that's a significant amount of reach.
Yeah, I'll say it's interesting to think about, but probably a bad idea. I think you're right.
Well, actually, let's carry this through. Like, okay, how about how about we get back Cloud of Fairies and Peregrine Drake, and Displace and Ghostly Flicker go into the ban list.
That would be interesting.
Like, at that point, you can no longer get infinite mana out of either of them. They're just really good value creatures. Like, I think I'm okay with that.
Do you think that Cloud of Fairies would just be too much with Spellsetter Sprite at that point? It's just a value. I would just have a really silly... You can never cast a 1 or 2 mana spell into my 2 mana.
Yeah, I agree with that because that was the other thing that made Cloud of Fairies so busted was that it was the perfect 2-drop in Delver.
All right, I guess that's fair, but like if the two double flicker cards go away and you get back Peregrine Drake, I think I'm fine with that. But then like we lose flicker decks, which are stupid.
No,
and fun.
I still don't think that'd be good, dude. Because one of the reasons Peregrine Drake was also good is because they could go Drake Muldrifter.
Sure, like I'm okay with someone getting
like,
to
good.
turn 5 and then getting some free 2/3s.
I don't know, dude. It seems, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea.
Also, like, I think Peregrine Drake, well, no, never mind. I was going to say it makes the Familiars deck too good, but that deck dies without Ghostly Flicker.
Mm-hmm. And Displace.
Tron would have to do actually, like, normal things again instead of just a flicker combo. Like, that just eats up so much match clock. I want to say that it's less fun than if we were to get rid of that.
Like I feel like if you brought back Peregrine Drake, there's a deck that could maybe like not do the traditional flicker loop, but somehow like just get enough ETB triggers to chuck a fireball at him. Like, I think there's still a deck there to be had. It's just no longer, taking up 50% of the winning metagame. What has to go on the ban list to make Treasure Cruise okay?
Everything.
Nothing. Just bring it back.
Graveyards.
Just bring it back.
Just
graveyards on the ban list, dude.
Under preordain, anything dredge. I don't know. What's the 3 mana one that you said is like
Evolving Wilds time? Bans.
Oh,
these cards.
Okay.
They gotta go
Basically,
on the ban
anything that goes into a graveyard.
Yeah, the whole format is banned except for Treasure Cruise.
As I said, banned graveyards.
Play that format.
Graveyard.
But yeah, like I think that's the catch about the Pauper ban list is like I every so often see like the drama for like Modern and Legacy, because I do play Legacy from time to time. Like, there's always banning drama, and there's always like people who want stuff taken off the ban list. Like, I really want them to get Necropotence off the ban list in Legacy. I think that'd be cool, but like, that's a format where you actually have really good answers. Like, the fact, like, Legacy kind of always gets that free pass of like, well, like Force of Will still exists. So like, there's no free wins off of anything we unban. But like in Pauper, I feel like every one of these, there's a very good reason it's there, and unbanning it's probably the wrong call at the end of the day.
Yeah, I do think it's perfect.
I mean, like, if they unify the lists, I would want to see Hymn to Torok on there. But apart from that, like,
a slightly better Mind Wrench. Like, we can handle Mind Wrench, no problem.
It's the fact that if your opponent's on the play and they hit it, and like you have you've made your first land drop and have 2 lands in hand, there's a chance that they just lock you out of playing most of the game. Like, that's more a bad play experience than overpowered. Just the fact that it creates like non-games sometimes, and the worst part is it's totally random as to whether or not it's that good or not. Like, sometimes you're going to hit stuff that doesn't matter in the early game, and sometimes you're going to take away the cards that they needed to actually play the game.
I'm willing to suffer through it, is all I'm saying, just to be proven wrong. I'll take that hit.
There was actually one day where something went wrong in Mitgo and Hymn to Torok was legal for like a 24-hour period. And there's some videos out there of people who were making pauper content at the time getting Hymn to Torok and just like having that like shatter pause moment of like, oh, this is bad. This is just miserable. Like, I know why this card isn't in the format now. Like,
okay. The longer I think about it, the more I feel wrong.
like I don't feel comfortable having that in my pauper cube where there's one copy of it because of how many feel bad experiences I've seen as a result of that card. But
it's totally in mine.
I mean, I also cut all the blue cantrips besides Opt, I think. But, you know, cube's a whole different, you know, can of worms. But
yeah,
I don't know. I guess the only other thing I think of to like go from here is like, what effect do you think pauper needs in the future? Like, what's the dream thing? And not even like it's specifically a card that already exists. Like, what's that effect that like you've got that deck that's 99% of the way there that you just want one more piece?
Wraths.
All right, I'll entertain more reasonable answers.
I want better ways to shuffle your graveyard into your library.
All right, so like Felden's Cane? Like,
Yeah,
would Felden's Cane be fine?
Literally just Felden's Cane would make me pretty happy. Elixir of Immortality might be too strong, but I want Elixir.
Ooh, I don't want to live in a world where like I could make teachings with Elixir of Immortality. Like,
Yeah, you do.
I really don't. One of the last paper events I went to, like I've been super busy lately and I haven't been able to get to paper events. I went to a paper event with the oversized teachings list, the 88 card list, and no one figured out what my win con was until I had to, you know, do the literal like put your deck next to mine. That's how I was going to win this game. Like, it wasn't fun and it wasn't good. It was like the mirror of that is just like unending misery. I don't know. Like, I'd be totally cool with Felden's Cane though, because Felden's Cane does exile itself, if I remember right.
Trying to Google it.
I think that's a one-use one. Like, you get one go and you're done.
Yeah, remove it from the game.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. I'm fine with that.
But right now we have like Battlefield Scrounger. That's not good enough for me.
It shouldn't be. It's not a good card. People have played it. I don't think it's a good card. Like, just facts there. Like, but like anything else other people would like besides Wraths?
Sorry.
I can keep going if nobody else wants to.
We did a show on it a little while ago, and I'm trying to find the notes from it because
There's no life denial, like a Skullcrack effect that isn't Skullcrack because that might be too strong. Like, just players can't gain life isn't written on any common card ever.
Yeah, like the closest we get is Flaring Pain, which stops you from preventing damage, which is similar, I guess. But yeah, like I'd probably be okay with like Skullcrack, except it shocks them. I think would be fine. Because I always forget, Skullcrack is life can't be gained and damage can't be prevented, or is it just the life can't be gained?
Yeah,
okay.
Damage can be prevented also.
Yeah, like I'd be fine with Skullcrack being in the format. Like, burn is not oppressive by any long shot, and you know, I'm sure they'd appreciate being able to actually beat a Cop Red. But
yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, my gimmicky answer was always like, I want Astral Slide in the format because I'm a monster. Like, I just want to live that dream where like I cycle away a land and use it to flicker my Tilling Tree folk so I get back the cycling land and another cycling land. Like, I don't know what I do from there. I have no idea. I just want to live that dream of just flickering everything. But I don't know. Like, I do really want Infest in the format. I think Infest would be fine in the format because it's 2 color pips, it's 3 mana, it doesn't make aggro cease to exist in totality. Like Pyroclasm is probably a bit too good, but I'd be okay with something at 3 mana that gets rid of X2s.
You get mad at him for saying board wipes, and then you go ahead and bring up your own board wipe.
Bring up very specific board wipes. I'm trying to think of anything else that I really want. Like I don't, as much as people love to pontificate about it, like there's no way to make like a pauper planeswalker. Like that's just always going to be too good.
That does bring up, we don't have good activated abilities. They're like really few and far between. So like some more activated abilities would be cool.
I'd love to see, actually, since we're going back to Ravnica, something similar to the Guild Mages at a common level. Like, tune down the power level, but something that's just like a 2 mana 2/2 with 2 colors and 2 activated abilities. Like, I think I'd be fine with something like that. I think that there's
just one, right?
So I know that there's 2 cycles that are similar, or yeah, 2 cycle and a half cycle that are similar to this. In Mirage Block, there's the Guild Mages at common who are all shards, where they're the central color and they have 2 activated abilities. And then there's the Apprentices and Disciples in Invasion Block, where you have one cycle of them as wedges and the other one is shards. So like those exist, and I do like the versatility of them, but I don't know. I'm really excited for Return to Ravnica. I know people love making the jokes, but like we will be getting multicolored uncommons, and historically that's been pretty good for our format in terms of like weird fringe cards. I don't know. We got Nivix Cyclops the last time we were there, so
I have one last one if nobody else has one.
Go ahead.
Guild gates that are 2 basic land types.
No, now I'm just thinking through.
Evolving Wilds can't get it.
Evolving Wilds can't get it. Sky Shroud Claim becomes a lot better.
The heck is that?
3 and a green, get 2 forests out of your library.
This is an EDH staple, Sean. Come on.
Yeah.
I hate EDH.
I know it because I used to pull it out of bulk all the time because it used to be like a $4 card before it got reprinted.
It still is like $1 or $2.
Oh no, it's 25 cents. No? It was in Battle Bond.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good.
So like Farseek becomes a much better ramp spell with that. I'm trying to think what else. Like
you keep naming cards that don't feel like problems. Like
there's got to be
just a little bit of ramp.
Yeah, like the ramp stuff gets better. What is it? Utopia Sprawl gets much better. But like Utopia Sprawl lets you turn a ETB like a guild gate into a Kuru at the cost of a card, and I think I'm okay with that. So like I wouldn't mind that.
And you're giving up the life because you're not gaining a life.
Sure, yeah. You're losing some slight percentage points in like the hyper aggressive matchups there. What about the Tri-lands? Because a lot of people want the Tri-lands.
I think those would be good too. I just think anything that could make this format go outside of the monocolor 2-color deck format that it currently is. Like I think it would be interesting to see what possibilities there are with 3-color decks.
All right. Here's one for you. How about Tarnished Citadel? It is a colorless land, and it has the ability to tap, pay 3 life, and you get a mana of any color out of it. So it's like the most painful City of Brass.
That seems good. I'm on board.
Like I'm.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's almost not playable because this format can be very aggressive, and like you have the double Tarnished Citadel draw. There's no way you can win.
Yeah, probably. Like
so, it probably is okay.
There's also what is it? Okay, here's the thing: would you rather have your guild gates with land types, or get the Mirage fetches. So the
Mirage fetches are nice. I like those a lot.
So for folks playing along at home, the Mirage fetches is a half cycle of allied colored lands where they ETB tapped, and then you can tap them, sacrifice them, and get one of two basic land types of an allied pair and put it into play. So
it doesn't make a lot of sense to have those if you can't fetch non-basics.
I don't know.
Because otherwise, why don't you just play Evolving Wilds and fetch whatever basic land you want?
That's true.
I mean, in my mind, they occupy a space more similar to Ash Barrens, where the priority is on having, when you have a deck with a bunch of mana costs that need specific requirements now, I feel like their value goes up. But
sure, I can see that.
I still think that I would rather have the tap lands. I just thought to myself, like, oh, Gush is kind of scary with these, but
well, I mean, you rare like one of the decks that plays Gush never plans on replaying those lands anyway, so
yeah,
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of other. I guess like those make days a lot better, right? You can lead on a tap land and have a counterspell up for what it's worth.
I think I'm most excited about I would be most excited about the tap lands that are basic land types.
Yeah. Like it would probably be fine. There's maybe some edge case that I'm not considering here, but like I think it makes green your default base color for a 5-color deck if you wanted to build one, just because there are so many like get a forest cards that never specify basic forest. So I could definitely see that being sort of the end outcome of that, but I don't know. I don't mind the idea. Yeah, outside of that, like I'm trying to think if there's any other effects. Like I wouldn't mind selling to make goblins better. Like not necessarily chieftain or ringleader or something like that, but I don't know. I have fond memories of when goblins was good.
So what about like lords in general? Like non-sliver lords, like
well, if they're non-sliver lords, I feel a lot better about it. Like the last thing Slivers needs is another lord.
Lords 10 through billion.
Yeah. Like at that point,
they're all lords.
Like if you had another 2-mana lord, I think that's the point where Slivers might consider not running a full playset of it. Like but like what other lords could reasonably be downshifted or like printed even? Because
most of them are probably going to cause a problem. That's
you just do like 3 or 4 mana flat stat bonus. Like the Sliver Lords are fine, right? They're just +1/+1. That deck's not tier 1. Like what good? There's not like Merfolk's in the same boat. Even if you downshift the Lord of Atlantis, there's not enough good Merfolk to make it worthwhile.
Don't worry, people will try to make that happen. They will.
It's true. I mean, we have like Goblin Caves. Is that the card?
Yep.
That gives them
the one that keeps them from dying.
Yeah, I guess +0/+1.
+0/+2.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
it's much better.
And I thought there was an attack one, but that might not actually be online. Is the problem?
Actually, in terms of commons that aren't available online, I'd love to see what people do with Goblin War Drums, because that has a common printing in the dark, I want to say. It's God, I always forget this one. It's like 3 or 4 mana. Yeah, it's 3 mana. So 2 and a red for an enchantment. Creatures you control have menace. I think that could be interesting in some sort of like evasive. Like, I could see you playing this alongside a Kiln Fiend.
I think it would be interesting. I don't think it would actually see any play.
Actually, I've got 3 words for you here. Mono red heroic. That's what likes this.
Nah. Still nope. Still nope.
Fair. But yeah, like I think the format's healthy. I'm excited for Ravnica just because gold cards are always slightly pushed. So I'm excited to see what we get from that set.
That'll be good.
One thing I do want to say on the air is when I first got into Pauper, I listened to you guys like every week for a very long time. And this is just like a great moment in my life that people I idolized would reach out to me because they wanted to talk to me. I'm super happy. Thank you guys for doing this.
Oh no,
Thanks
no worries. I'm glad that we didn't become another Never Meet Your Heroes story.
Yeah, we're very, very happy to meet with y'all. We definitely want to do more collaborative content. It's a big push for us right now. So thank you all so much for joining us as well, or for having us on your show as well too.
Yeah, this was a great little talk.
All right, well, that was a good episode, rather invigorating, don't you think, Mike?
Yeah, it was a blast to, sit down and talk with some of our contemporaries. I had a good time.
Having a good time. Thanks for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you by the support of our patrons. Please consider supporting us if you like the show, especially Narticus. You can check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you, if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated as they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or idea for a topic, you can contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games, my LGS, and Mike's LGS, JP Comics, and of course L, who does our theme song Quantitative. You can find that and other great tracks over at soundcloud.net/ELLELLELL. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.